Hi, I'm Lee, born and raised in Mildensboro, a place that's been dying my whole life but never quite had the decency to lie down. My wife Cherry was the first to notice it was shrinking. We were out back one evening, beer in hand, watching the dusk soak into the tree line when she said, "That water tower looks closer than it used to." I laughed, said it just seemed that way because the pines had thinned. But she didn't laugh back. She just stared at that tower, eyes squinting like it was leaning toward us. We both knew that view by heart. My family's lived on this same patch of land for 3 generations. Mildensboro doesn't move much. People are either born here and stay, or leave young and never look back. Cherry and I stayed. We had our first kid before graduation, planted roots, and told ourselves we'd build something steady out of all that stillness. But Mildensboro never stopped shrinking. The textile mill closed when I was 10. Everything since has been rust and quiet. Still, the town never changed until that day on the porch. The next morning, I grabbed my dogs and went walking to the water tower. I'd done that hike 1,000 times as a kid. It used to be a good half-day trip, but this time I reached it in 20 minutes. The air felt wrong, thick, like there was less of it to breathe. I walked it again the next day. Same thing. So I grabbed my old Stanley tape reel, stretched it out 300 feet at a time. Cherry watched from the porch, probably thinking I'd lost it. 15 pulls later, I was standing under the tower. 4,327 feet. Not even a mile. No way. That stretch of forest had been my world as a boy. Creeks, ridges, hollers, all gone small as a backyard. That night at Ruth's Diner, I told my buddies Moose and Keith, we've been tight since kindergarten. The kind of friends you don't have to explain things to. But this time they laughed. If the whole town's shrinking, Moose said, hands making a dome over the table, wouldn't everybody notice? Or are we all getting smaller too? Keith added, maybe it's just your memory, Lee. Things look different when you're grown. I was about to argue when Miss Ella, our waitress, walked by with coffee. Miss Ella, I called, when's the last time you drove out to Springfield? She smiled. Last week. Family trip to Costco. Brought the grandbabies, my brother. Everybody, and do you remember the drive? I asked. She froze. Marlboro halfway to her lips, eyes glassy. The coffee pot overflowed. Drop by drop, it filled my mug and spilled onto the table. For 2 full minutes she didn't move. Then she turned, walked away, and never looked back. The kitchen door swung once, twice, then stilled. We called her name. No answer. Lou, the cook, came out wringing his hat. She just left, he said. Got in her car, took off. Didn't say where. That's when I knew it wasn't just distance disappearing. We left Lou standing in the diner's doorway, still holding his hat like a man at a funeral. The neon open sign flickered behind him, painting his face red-blue-red. Maybe she just remembered something bad. Keith offered as we stepped into the night air, or forgot everything. Moose muttered. We didn't answer. We just drove. The library lights were still on when we pulled up. Poor Don Chenowitz, head librarian and town historian by default, looked like he'd seen ghosts when the 3 of us stormed in. Boys, he said, I haven't seen you inside this place since POK Monday cards were a thing. We need maps, I said. Don pointed us to the back room without another word. We spread the maps across a big wooden table. Moose traced the edges of Mildensboro with a calloused finger. There's the water tower, he said. The high school, Ruth's, your place. Keith frowned. Where's the McCormick place? It used to be right about here. I jabbed at the paper. The spot looked wrong. Closer somehow, tighter into town. We started sketching landmarks from memory. The more we drew, the smaller it looked. The borders of our home pressed inward like a tightening belt. Moose's voice cracked. That's impossible. The town can't shrink on paper. Maybe the maps do too, I said. We stared at what we'd made, a child's drawing of a dying place. The farthest north thing I can remember, I said, is that old cabin that burned down years back. Past that was the McCormick's place. We'll check both, Keith groaned. I got third shift. You two go play ghost hunters. Moose and I drove north, headlights cutting tunnels through the trees. Radio fizzed into static halfway there. The air got colder the farther we climbed, pine needles glinting silver under the moon. When I finally pulled onto the gravel shoulder, the last of the daylight had drained away. You go left, I'll go right, I said. Meet back in 10. He grunted agreement. I climbed up the hill, grabbing roots slick with moss. The woods were silent, no crickets, no frogs, no wind. Just the sound of my breathing. Halfway up, the smell hit me. Ozone. Sharp, electric, and then I saw it. A faint glow flickered through the trees, silvery and soft like a candle drowning in fog. Before I could move toward it, wood cracked nearby. Heavy steps. I crouched low, fists ready. Lee? A whisper called, "Moose?" He stumbled into my flashlight beam, pale and sweating. "It ain't there," he said. "What ain't?" "The shack. It's gone." We climbed back down. His hands shook the whole way. "I seen it 100 times, Lee," he said when we reached the truck. "You couldn't miss it. Now it just ain't." He didn't talk the whole ride back. The radio hissed static the whole way, like the town itself was breathing. When we hit the turnoff for my road, I kept driving. Moose looked up, confused. "Home's that way." "I know," I said. "But we got one more stop to make." He swallowed hard. "The McCormick's?" I nodded. The road to the McCormick's place wound through the kind of dark that swallowed headlights whole. Pine needles hissed against the windshield like rain, though the sky was bone dry. Moose kept glancing at the dashboard clock. "How far up are they again?" "About 6 miles past the county marker," I said automatically. Except there wasn't any marker anymore. We passed where it should have been a rusted post leaning out of the ditch, but the sign itself was gone. "You see that?" I asked. "See what?" "Exactly." Neither of us spoke again until we reached the top of the ridge. The McCormick house sat half hidden behind a row of dying cedars, porch light glowing amber through the mist. I parked. "You coming?" "Yeah," he said, though he didn't sound sure. We crunched up the gravel path. The door opened before we could knock. Mrs. McCormick stood there, white hair tangled, eyes red like she'd been crying for days. "Evening, ma'am," I said. "We were just checking." She cut me off. "You shouldn't be here." "Beg your pardon?" Her gaze flicked over our shoulders toward the tree line. "The woods moved again tonight. You feel it, don't you? The air's heavy, like something's pressing down." I didn't answer, because she was right. The air felt thick enough to drink. "Where's Mr. McCormick?" Moose asked quietly. She turned, looking deeper into the house. For a moment, I thought she'd forgotten who he was. Then she whispered, "He went to check the shed." "That was yesterday." "You mean he didn't come back?" She shook her head. Moose took a step forward. "We can look for him, ma'am." "Maybe he just know," she said sharply. "You listen. There's nothing to find." The porch light flickered. The shadows of the cedars crawled longer across the yard, stretching toward us. I could swear the trees were closer than when we'd arrived. Mrs. McCormick backed into the house. "You should leave. It's folding in. It'll start with the hills, then the hollers. You boys get out while you can." Her voice cracked, and the door slammed shut. Moose looked at me. "She's losing it." "Maybe not," I said. We jogged back to the truck, gravel skittering under our boots. I started the engine and threw it into reverse. Halfway down the hill, the headlights caught something moving along the tree line, a shape that wasn't quite a person. Gliding instead of walking, its outline bending the light like heat above asphalt. "Did you see that?" Moose whispered. "I saw it." The shape paused, turned though it had no face, and the woods seemed to ripple behind it. Trees warping closer together as if space itself was folding. "Floor it," Moose said. I did. We didn't slow down until we hit Main Street again. Milden's Boro looked wrong. Streetlights seemed closer together, their air thinner. The edges of town felt stitched tighter, like fabric drawn on a frame. "Lee," Moose said, voice small, "what if it ain't the world shrinking into us, but us getting pulled out of it?" For the first time, I didn't have an answer. We pulled into my driveway a little after midnight. The house looked the same, but the air around it felt swollen, distorted like a mirage over hot asphalt. The porch light flickered. Even though I'd changed that bulb last week, Cherry was waiting on the steps, arms crossed tight around her chest. "Where the hell have you been?" Before I could answer, Moose blurted out. "The woods moved." Cherry frowned. "What?" I held up a hand. "Just listen. The McCormicks are gone." Mrs. McCormick said, "It's folding in. Whatever this is, it's getting worse." She stared past us toward the trees. "I know," she said softly. "You hear it too?" That stopped me. "Hear what?" She pointed toward the hills. "At night, the sound the wind makes, except it's not the wind. It's voices. Far off. They sound like echoes underwater." Moose swallowed hard. I didn't hear anything. Cherry's eyes glistened in the porch light. "That's because you haven't been here. It started last night. The air hums. The dogs won't go outside after dark." As if on cue, the hound inside whimpered low. I took a breath. "Then we're leaving. Tonight?" Cherry looked at me like I'd just suggested flying to the moon. Leave Mildensboro? Lee, where would we even go? Anywhere, I said. We'll drive to Springfield. You'll see for yourself, but even as I said it, I realized I couldn't picture the road out. I could see my driveway, the first turn onto Main, but after that, nothing. What's wrong? Cherry asked. Try to remember the drive to Springfield, I said. She frowned, searching her mind. Her lips parted, then closed again. I can't, Moose cursed under his breath. I grabbed my keys anyway. We're going to try. We packed fast wallets, blankets, a duffel of clothes. The house creaked like it didn't want us leaving. As we drove through town, every landmark looked closer than it should. Ruth's Diner, the post office, the high school all crowded together like dollhouses on the same shelf. The Pioneer statue leaned as though gravity had changed its mind. When we hit the edge of town, the road narrowed. Pavement gave way to gravel, then to packed dirt. The headlights stretched ahead into nothing. A wall of fog cut across the road like poured concrete. Where's the bridge? Cherry whispered. There is no bridge here, I said, but my voice didn't sound like my own. The fog pulsed once inward. Moose leaned forward. Lee, don't drive into that. Something moved inside the fog, slow, deliberate, a darker shadow shifting beneath it. Then I heard a faint sound, like a whisper, rising from a faraway valley. It said my name. Lee. It was Cherry's voice, but she was right beside me. She gasped and clutched my arm. Don't answer, but the whisper came again, closer now. Lee, come home. And for the first time, I realized Mildensboro wasn't shrinking. It was swallowing. The whisper kept coming, my name again and again. The sound bending in on itself like it was circling through a tunnel. I slammed the truck into reverse, gravel spitting out behind us, but the fog didn't stay still. It crept forward, inch by inch, swallowing the road. Lee, Cherry screamed. Go. I did. The tires squealed, the steering wheel shaking like it wanted free. We tore back down the dirt road, past the Welcome to Mildensboro sign. Only now it leaned sideways, half buried in the ground, like it was sinking. In the rearview mirror, the fog rolled across the fields and over the tree line. It didn't rise, didn't spread, it folded, curling inward like someone tugging at a sheet. We made it back into town and skidded to a stop outside Ruth's. The diner lights were on, but the inside was empty. Chairs still upright, coffee steaming on the counter. Moose jumped out first, shouting, Miss Ella. Lou! But his voice sounded muted, swallowed by the air itself. Cherry clung to me, whispering, It's the same air from the woods. She was right sharp with ozone, buzzing with that low hum that makes your teeth ache. A sound rose above it, a low, slow groan, like metal bending under pressure. Then the ground shuddered. We stumbled outside. Every building on Main Street leaned a little closer together. The street lamps flickered, their posts bent in like stalks of grass in wind. That wasn't there. It's pulling tight, Moose said. Like a knot. We have to go, Cherry said. Now, I looked around and my stomach dropped. The horizon was gone. Not dark, not fog. Gone. The world just ended about a mile out, like a painting peeling off the wall. We ran back to the truck. When I turned the key, the engine stuttered. The air thickened. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. Not a person, not quite. Shapes walking at the far end of the street. Silhouettes of people we used to know. Lee, Moose said hoarsely. That looks like Ella. It did. Miss Ella, with her lipstick and her coffee pot. Walking slow, steady, her feet not touching the ground. Behind her came others. Lou. Old Mr. McCormick, kids from the high school. All half transparent, their outlines blurring as they moved closer. They stopped 20 yards away. Then, in one voice, like every breath in town had joined together, they said, Stay home. The lights blew out. The world went dark, and in that dark, I swear I felt the borders of Mildensboro press closer. The way a throat tightens before it swallows. I don't remember turning the key again, but the engine roared to life. I slammed it into drive and stomped the pedal. The truck lurched forward just as the pavement beneath us cracked like ice. The shadows those half people reached, their hands thin and grey like smoke. Cherry screamed my name. Moose shouted something. I couldn't hear. The town was folding itself shut behind us, streetlights bending, houses tilting in, storefronts flattening like paper pressed between glass. I drove until there was no road left, just black soil and static on the radio. The headlights cut through air that felt too thick to be air at all. Then the truck stopped, dead. We weren't at the edge anymore. We were in it. The fog hung like a curtain. It didn't move this time, it waited. Moose threw open the door, shouting, "We can run," and bolted into the mist. I called after him, but his voice faded halfway through his name. A second later, there was nothing. Not even footsteps. Cherry clutched my arm. "We can't stay here, Lee." The fog rippled, and out stepped Miss Ella again, only not her. The face was smooth, unfinished, like clay before it's shaped. She smiled with no mouth. "You can't leave," it whispered in her voice. "There's nowhere to go." Cherry pressed closer to me, her breath shallow. "Lee, look." Behind Ella, the town was rebuilding itself. Houses growing out of the mist, Ruth's neon blinking back to life. The diner, the library, even the water tower, all there, closer together than ever, packed tight in a circle no wider than a football field. It wasn't shrinking anymore. It was finished. "Lee," Cherry said, trembling. "What happens when it's done?" I stared at the water tower, looming now just a few yards away. The metal shimmered like heat haze, and from inside it came that same whisper, my name. I grabbed Cherry's hand and ran. The air thickened around us, each step heavier than the last. Behind us, the sound of folding steel and tearing earth roared like thunder. We broke through the last wall of fog and stumbled into open night. No stars, no moon, just a grey sky stretching forever. I looked back. Milden's Boro was gone. Not collapsed, not buried, gone. A round void in the distance, pulsing faintly, smaller with every beat. Cherry was crying. "Where are we?" I didn't have an answer. The horizon was empty in every direction, like the world had been erased around us. Then from somewhere far off, a faint hum started, low, rhythmic, like power lines alive in the wind. Cherry squeezed my hand. "Lee, it's still coming." I looked at the shrinking glow where our town had been. The hum grew louder. Beneath it, I could just make out a whisper, soft and steady, spreading across the nothing. "Stay home." And when I turned to Cherry, the glow in her eyes matched it, warm, white, pulling me in. That's when I realized Milden's Boro hadn't vanished at all. ID had taken everything else with it.